Hey y'all, I'm Britt D, licensed therapist and professional analyzer who's definitely scrolled through Instagram a time or two wondering why everyone else's life looks like a highlight reel and I'm just over here trying to remember what day it is. So today we're talking about something that sneaks up on all of us, okay? Um, Comparing ourselves to other people. You know, those moments where you're feeling good about yourself and then you see someone else online who's already accomplished what you're still working on, and suddenly you feel like you're behind in your own story. Well, we're going to unpack why we do this, how it's quietly destroying our confidence, and what to do instead without the toxic positivity or the fake just love yourself type of stuff that is floating around here nowadays. We're going to get into the real psychology behind why we do these things, okay? So we're going to start from the beginning because I like to start from the beginning with everything because it paints a picture of how things work. So we're going to start from the beginning. Comparison is not a new concept. Our brains are wired to compare. It's literally a part of how we survive. Like back in the day, we used to compare to figure out different things like who's faster, who's stronger, who's safe to follow, right? You had to compare to figure out those things. But now that same instinct is comparing like our 9 to 5 life to someone else's Bali vacation vlog that they got going on. You know what I mean? So a lot of this starts in childhood and how, and maybe a lot of us grew up in a home where achievement equaled love, right? With the things that you did, equaled how your caregivers loved you. When you brought home like an A, everyone clapped. The minute you brought home a B, suddenly you're being compared to your cousin who maybe got an A plus or something, you know? So in that type of stuff, it teaches our brain that my value depends on outperforming someone else. So when we fast forward and you built a whole identity on external validation, that's exhausting. You become tired and depleted, right? Because everything is based upon how well you can do something, how fast you can do something, etc. So the problem is that comparison doesn't just motivate us anymore. It distorts our thinking. It's a cognitive distortion sometimes, and it keeps us in a cycle of, I'll be happy when instead of I'm proud of where I am right now. And that's where it gets pretty dangerous because you want to be proud of where you are so that you can continue pushing forward, right? But when you constantly compare yourself to others, you start to influence or reinforce, rather, beliefs, right? And they're toxic beliefs. They're very unhealthy. And the beliefs that you start to reinforce is like, I'm not enough. I'm behind. I don't matter unless I'm better than so and so. And those beliefs are not, they're very detrimental. They're very unhealthy beliefs, right? Those thoughts just don't sit quietly. They show up in how you show up for yourself. They show up in your mood. They show up in your motivation, your relationships, even in your body. You start noticing that you're like irritable, you're burnt out, you're very tense. And so it's just an unhealthy pattern to get into, right? I want to ask you guys, like, have you ever scrolled for like an hour and then you end up feeling like your whole life is trash, right? Because you're comparing yourself. It's not by accident that your brain releases dopamine every time you see something new or shiny or better, right? But then it crashes because after a while, after you see these new things, it's not new anymore. So then it crashes. And that crash is where your self-esteem actually takes a hit. And social media is like the threshold of comparison, like on steroids, right? Because you're not comparing yourself to real life. You're comparing yourself to somebody else's curated, filtered 1% existence because they're showing their best self in a short clip, right? Nobody's going to post their credit card debt, their recent breakup, them crying in a car, them being evicted, right? Nobody's going to post that. They're posting the Maldives trips. They're posting all of these great vacations. They don't post the meltdown that happened right before the trip, right? And here's the twist. Even when you think comparison is motivating you, it's usually driven by fear. Fear of being left behind, fear of not being seen, fear of being forgotten. So that's not motivation. Let's be clear. That's anxiety wearing tennis shoes, or in my case, Jordans, okay? That's anxiety wearing Jordans, basically, because that's what's behind that force, right? Let me say something real for a second. I want to be real for a second. Comparison isn't just about jealousy, it's about grief. And people get confused with that. You're grieving the version of yourself you thought you'd be by now. You see someone else living your dream, and instead of celebrating them, it pokes a tender spot inside of you that says, why not me, right? So then what do you think happens? You stop showing up fully. You start shrinking yourself. You start delaying your goals because you think you're not good enough, right? You start thinking, why should I continue posting or creating or healing or starting that project when someone else already did it better than me? That's what comparison steals. It steals like your creativity, your authenticity, your peace, right? Because you're steadily racking your brain. It tricks you into abandoning your own lane while you're watching somebody else driving theirs. And it's just unacceptable. It's not okay. But, all right, here's my therapist moment. Here's how you start shifting out of that mindset. You step one is going to be the awareness, right? You notice when comparison shows up and who or what triggers that, right? And you pay close attention. That's your mirror, not your enemy, right? Instead of thinking she's better than me, try asking yourself and shifting the question to, what is this showing me about what I value, right? Because if you can see someone and you're like, she's better than me, what is your value? What are you valuing? Are you valuing a vacation? Are you valuing that they have a car? Are you valuing that they have a YouTube channel and you don't, right? Because maybe the person's success reminds you of something that you want to work toward, and that is okay, but it's not a competition. It's just data for what's to come for you, right? And then the second thing is in that that helps us to start shifting is gratitude. Now, everybody talks about gratitude. I'm talking about for real gratitude, right? Not the fake kind, like I'm grateful for air and Wi-Fi. I'm talking about intentional gratitude, where you actually pause and name the good in your life, right? Because there's a lot of it. Gratitude grounds you in what's real, not what's missing. It keeps you grounded in the now, right? And so when we want to get real with gratitude, and then the last and the I guess one of the last things is self-compassion. Talk to yourself like someone you love, right? Because a lot of times we talk to people who we love with compassion and all these things, but the person who matters most is ourselves, and we don't even talk to ourselves kindly. We say all these bad things to each other, and I know it sounds cliche, but think about it. How often do you bully yourself for not being there yet? I'm still overweight. I still haven't got that job promotion. I still didn't get that car I wanted, right? You cannot shame yourself into growth. It doesn't work that way. No matter how bad you want it, you cannot shame yourself into growth. You can't heal either if you're constantly roasting yourself. So stop it. The last thing I want to mention is limit the triggers. You know what the triggers are from step one because we acknowledged and we became aware. So because you know the triggers, limit the triggers. If every time you open social media, you feel drained, it's not self-care to keep scrolling, right? It's self-sabotage. So stop. Mute, unfollow, take a digital hiatus. Protect your peace like it's rent money. Protect your peace at all costs. It's not a joke, right? Anything that triggers you, limit it. Get rid of it, whatever you can, okay? So I want you to listen. Listen to me. Your timeline is not late. It's right on time. Your pace is not slow, and your story is not small, okay? Every single time you compare yourself, you disconnect from your own power. There's no traffic in your lane because it's yours. It's no one else's. So today, give yourself permission to just be in your own process. Stop scrolling for proof that you're enough and start really reminding yourself that you already are, right? Start reminding yourself that you're already enough. And if this message hits home, go ahead and like and subscribe and share with someone who's been caught in the comparison trap, right? Again, I'm Britt Dones, licensed therapist, helping you laugh, heal, and hopefully scroll a little less. I'll see you next time.